So basically there's two ways you can set up a shaper. Whenever you're running a profile with the shaper, the two different ways. One is if your profile is shaping the entire face of the piece that you're running, you set the fences up like a joiner. When you're running that edge, you're shaping that entire edge. So this outfeed that runs this way, this outfeed table is flush with the lowest point of the blade of the cutting surface. And then the infeed side is set back from that. So kind of like a joiner where the infeed table is lower than the other one, it's cutting and then everything's referencing off the outfeed table. You set it up the same way here. So like if you had a board that you wanted to put a bull nose on, this is your fence, this is your table. So if you want to cut a bull nose, let's just say we're doing that. This is what your cutter head would actually look like. They usually have another flat. That would be below your table because you're trying to cut right to this point. But this would be the lowest point of your cut, which that would be flush with your outfeed table. So essentially, same thing you have going here, which is how you want to do it, because then you're cutting you're actually taking some dimension off the face, but you're ensuring you're cutting the whole entire profile out of the thing. There's other situations where you're only putting the profile in part of the piece. So like we're running beaded face frames, or a situation where we're running that bead. So now say, this is your fence, this is your table. You've got just that little bead. Let's put that flush there. And then that comes up. Your cutter is actually sticking out past the fences, but you're gonna put your fences parallel because you're not cutting any, say this is your board, you're not cutting any of that material. So that's run flat and referencing, or like this. Technically we're cutting 2-0, but with this we shouldn't be taking off any material. Which is why I made just one solid fence to ensure it's always supported, always parallel, always good to go that way. All cutters for shapers, for the most part, but it's for sure for doors, are always flipped. So you want to reference, whatever your reference face is always going to be down. So like, you can't hold down square edge, but like all of our other door cutters that have an inside bead profile, the profile's on the bottom. Just because in that way, you're using power feeder, you're using your jig, but it's referencing off the steel. So that way, if there's any variation in your material, it's going to be to the backside. This one is a little different situation just because it's for coping. So we're referencing off of this fence, but we have the jig, so we don't, that's why I just pulled this fence way back. We don't even need it. But that's only in a coping situation.
What's coping?
Like 5-piece shaker doors, they kind of roughly put like 5-piece doors as just calling them shakers now. But they also call them cope and stick, which, on your styles, they're just the straight cut on the edge, but on the rail you have that end cut, which is the coping cut. Those two pieces interlocked into each other. So for all of our shaker sets, here's another door profile, but it gives you two opposite profiles so that they'll interlock with each other. I mean, it really just, once you get the setup dialed in, they're honestly pretty simple. I mean, main things to check are you can always want your fences parallel or in the same plane as each other. I know we have that issue with that one. Sometimes the infeed fence gets cocked quite a bit, but this one's adjustments are the easiest, and all of them kind of have the same principle. This one's much easier to do. These big knobs will loosen this whole shroud so you can move the whole thing, but then each individual fence moves independently, so loosen that lock nut and you can do them, which, especially when you're trying to dial in this to get it just so it's touching. Because like, when I'm setting up this outfeed side, like it's not moving the ruler, but I can hear it touching it. that's where you want it. But yeah, this has micro adjust. The other thing you want to do too is after you get everything set up is move your fences as close to the blades as you can safely, but you want to support that piece as much as possible so things aren't diving in and jumping in. Also why I just made one big ass solid fence for that one, so we don't have to worry about it. Something that you have to actually put into practice and do it to make it easier, but the biggest thing is just the principle of, you know, are you cutting the whole face or are you just putting a profile into part of the face, which is going to determine whether your fences are offset or flush. Really, other than that, we've got up and down for your height adjustment. Just on this one in particular, you do have forward and reverse. There's been maybe twice ever I've needed to put this thing in reverse. You'll probably never need to do it. That's what we're getting at. One feature this one has, which is nice, is you can zero it out. So if you're like trying to sneak up on something or get right to where you're at, or if you have it set up like, you know, just because we don't have 9 shapers, if we needed to break this one down and do something, but we knew we were gonna have to run it again, you could hit 0, set up your other one, run that real quick, and then just come back and that's on your height. So like right now I got 0, which we're gonna need to use this again, but you can crank it and then just bring it right back to. So, power feeders, we have them both set up the standard way. So these things can adjust in a lot of different ways, but honestly, I really only use them in 2 for 90% of what I'm doing. The main thing with them though is I kind of always try to keep them cocked into the fence a little bit. So it's obviously putting downward pressure in, but it's pushing kind of diagonally. You can run into problems if you do too much too, but you want a slight angle so it's constantly kind of pushing into the fence. As far as pressure down, I usually make the space between the wheels and the table like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch less than what the material actually is. This one in particular, we could adjust it. It's not too much of a problem. Also slants forward a little bit. All the wheels are on shocks. You'll know if you do too much, you'll know if you do too little, but also I always reference it off this back wheel just because that one's a little higher than the rest. So you can flip it all the way around so that the wheels are pointing, like in this orientation, I'd say the wheels are pointing towards the table, but you can flip them so they run towards the fence. It's a pain in the ass to change it, but for certain applications we need to do it. For that machine, we're gonna get another shaper that will always be that way because it's just time consuming to keep messing with the shapers, which is why I want to put another one on there that's just set up, so all I gotta do is swing one in, swing one out. And our lock miters will be nice and easy. On this machine in particular, if you ever need to change the blade, you have to open this door. There's a little handle up under here. You pull it out and give it a 1/2 turn, but there it locks in. And this doesn't automatically lock. You need to turn it till it gets to, oh, I guess I went too far. There, and then that locks in. So it's just a big Allen key screw on the top. These two, they're just 2 wrenches. You have to this spot and then grab the nut and twist them off. Okay, so it's just minor differences between the two. With these, this one you can screw that nut all the way down to the cutter if you needed to. I like to put spacers just so you're not sitting there threading it as much. This one's a little different. You have to use the right amount of spacers because there's a cap, little screw or little cap piece that screw goes into. So you actually have to fill up the whole shaft with spacers. Both of these two can take all different size spindles. I've tried to get almost everything in 3/4 just because it's usually easier, but some of the bigger stuff has 1 1/4 inch. That one has one that's like 1/2 inch, I think, and I've never even seen a 1/2 inch cutter, so we have it. But so this is just a bigger version of what's on there right now, and this is that top cap nut. These are the spacers, so you want to have your cutters come in, and then that top spacer needs to sit like just above where this shoulder is, because then this one comes in and actually keeps pressure on it. The top washer squeezes everything in. So we have that router table that we got. That shaper also comes with a spindle that you can chuck router bits into. But I got that with the spindles and this thing. So all of these have just a big rod from underneath that screws in. So same with this one, you have to get underneath, unscrew that bolt, same thing, just directly underneath the shaft. There's a big long thread rod. That comes in there. This one additionally has a nut too, so this screws in and then the rod screws into that. So that one's got two. This one's only got the rod that goes into it. But yeah, I mean, other than, I'd say for y'all, changing this out would probably be the most realistic. And it's just that one screw. Any questions?
So what is that machine set up for?
So that's gonna be our lock miters.
Lock miters.
Maybe eventually one more shaper so that we can kind of have doors always set up. If we ever do other profiles, all of our door sets are these orange cutters, which they're all kind of calibrated the same as far as like the diameters of them. So this shaper, the way it's set up right now, should never have to move that fence. Anything you might want to do a height adjustment a little bit, but that should be it between switching through all of those. It would essentially be the same thing if we had another one set up for sticks that, you know, as far as the fences go, we could set them up and just never have to move them, which I'd like to get there with that one too, or we'll be there with that one, just to keep that one lock miters all the time, especially that one because it's a really giant pain in the ass to set up. Maybe this one, which kind of be our all-purpose styles for doors, but all the other stuff too. And the styles for doors aren't too bad to set up, like especially if you have this already set up, you can just, you know, cut your piece, use that as your test piece to set that one up. So yeah, this is kind of coping machine. That'll be lock miter machine. That's everything else machine for now. One good way to check that though is once this is in, put it to the fence, lock down, the maker cut, pull it back. That piece should now be 30-second shy of the fence. So if for some reason we're ever running doors, it's always good to always do test pieces, just kind of for fitting, making sure these two work together. Double check this thing's square. It's taking off what it's supposed to be taking off. Matches with your stick.